MLS Aces Podcast. This is your host, Tom Sweezy. This is episode 310, and we are 7 minutes into a recording because I hate technology. Jason, how's your Wednesday going?
It's good. It's good. This has just been a fun process to get this going today. So
You've been watching me struggle for
well,
about
it's like
15
I
minutes.
can hear you, but you can't hear me. But then it's you can hear me, but I don't know. I don't know.
It's not you. This is all on the me end of the struggle right now.
It's okay. We got it going. We're rolling now, and we get some fun games to talk about. Some playoff action.
Exactly. You're the New York Red Bulls. I'm the Columbus Crew in this situation. Unfortunately, I do want to start off with some poor, sad news around the U.S. soccer world. And at this point, it is a few weeks old, and we've put out, comments on social media, but we do want to just wish a rest in peace to former Philadelphia Union goalkeeper Holden Trent, who suddenly and sadly passed away a few weeks ago. And it was always a weird thing. Like, I think especially with like the Siggy Schmidt stuff happened, when a death just pops up out of nowhere, it's hard, I think, to emotionally process, even just kind of comprehend and everything like that. So whatever we can do in terms of kind of talking about him, his life, and giving any kind of grievance or love or whatever to his family, his fiance, friends, teammates, everything like that. I think that's what we're here for as part of the larger U.S. soccer MLS conversation as well. Jason, I don't know if you have anything you want to say about it, but that's kind of my piece there.
I mean, I think just echo what you said and rest in peace, and hope his family gets, I don't know, love that they deserve. So, yeah,
I think that's a fair way to put it. I hope they get some extra love. That's really it. In a poor transition away from death, because
there's no good transition.
There's no transition away from death. Let's turn things over to the MLS Cup playoffs, where we already have some idea of who's moving on. We already have some conclusions to some of these round one series. But Jason, I figured we'd start over in the Western Conference. And I didn't really lay out these matchups probably in the most like direct conversational way, but I think we should start with the one series that is concluded out in the Western Conference, and then we'll tackle the other three. We'll start with the ones that are completed, and then we'll tackle the other two. I was going to say,
there's more than one complete. Yeah. I started to be like, wait, what am I missing here?
No, that's just, again, where my brain's at today. But we'll start with the two that are completed, and then we'll dive into the rest of it. But number 2, LA Galaxy versus number 7, Colorado Rapids. The series was over in 2 games. A 5-0 win in game 1 for the Galaxy in LA. Game 2, 4-1 win for the Galaxy out in Colorado. I mean, Ricky Puig and Gabriel Peck, the stars of this LA Galaxy team all 2024, shined in 2 games. Both combined for 5 goals and 4 assists across both games. We saw the heavy offensive dominance from the LA Galaxy, and we saw an unfortunate, I think, playoff timeline for the Colorado Rapids in this one. I don't really know high level what to take away from this series other than what we already know. Galaxy really good, Colorado Rapids super injured at this point of the year, and I think it was just kind of alignment of that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I don't know. I was like talking, and I don't know if you can hear me at the beginning.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
But you were talking, I don't know, whatever. Well, this is a chaotic episode, whatever. Anyway, the Galaxy, they obviously are good, right? They were nearly the number 1 seed for a reason, scoring all season, scoring again here, just like you said, dominant offensive performance, getting Puig with a great series of 2 games. Peck, obviously, the whole team in attack is just terrifying, and it's been that way the whole season. I think the only thing that was ever a concern was their defensive efforts or how they were going to do that, which ended up actually not like overall across the season wasn't too bad. And in this series was pretty amazing. Like you said, like just a really unfortunate time for Colorado to not have a really full strength team. Could they have done more with, I don't know, probably 5-0 and 9-1 on across 2 games is really bad. That's not even competitive at all, which is unfortunate. I think Colorado's a better team than that whole series and scoreline indicates, but it just happened to be that they caught the Galaxy where they're just flying right now. And honestly, like, yeah, that next series will be very interesting. But.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to break it up into like 2 parts in my brain. Like, this was really good Galaxy. This is what, the entire organization, fan base around the LA Galaxy wanted, right? Dominant, offensive. Ricky Puig is firing on all in cylinders. They're only allowed 1 goal across 2 games. They showed a little confidence on that back line. But part of me is like, anyone else they're going to face in these playoffs are just so different. Yeah. Like, Georgie was playing on half a leg for 1 game. There was no Cole Bassett. Reggie Cannon was bad in these 2 games, but to be all like, give him a little bit of credit. He hasn't played that much, like in recent weeks for the Galaxy. So I don't know. I want to give the Galaxy credit. They did what they had to do, but it was against the hobbled together Rapid side that, I feel bad for because they had a really good year.
Yeah, I mean, they got probably somehow that whole decision day craziness ended up with them getting a very favorable matchup when it's kind of all said and done because of the, where the Galaxy kind of limped into this playoffs. I don't know. I feel like I've talked, like I've always been trying to take away from the Galaxy this whole season. So I don't really want to be like, well, they didn't really, they had the easiest team or the competition or whatever, which is kind of true, across all of these series, even in the East, arguably at this point. But at the end of the day, like they have to play who where the teams fall, and they dominated, and you can't really take anything away from, if they squeaked by this team, I would be over 2 games even. I would maybe have some concern, but they allowed 1 goal, scored 9. Like, that's this iteration of the Galaxy. That's what they're trying to do, and they did that. And is Minnesota, I'm sure we'll get to that, but are they going to give them more of a test? Probably, but it's still a Galaxy team that I'm terrified is going to put up 3-4 goals every game.
Yeah. So. And I probably should have told you this before as well. Listeners and viewers, this is where this episode is today. I figured we'd wait on previewing the next series since I don't think they play until like November 20 something.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm not a huge fan of this schedule, but
I mean, Ricky Puig has also been super vocal about how much he
a couple of them were not happy with it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But do we want to talk a little bit more about the Rapids? Do we want to give the Rapids a little bit more love or no?
No. Okay. I mean, like, to Rapids fans, like, you guys have a good team. Like, they should be pretty happy with, I mean, it sucks how it ended, but the season, it was pretty great for them, honestly. Like, they should be pretty happy and where things can go from here.
Yeah.
I think Chris Armas has done a good job. I think they've brought in, I don't know, they're still like USMNT light, but here we are.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I like Armas. He's good for the squad. I think you get in the whole off season of getting Reggie Cannon fit where he hasn't really played games in the last like half decade, it feels like. Same with Sam Vines, same with Bassett, Georgie, Stefan.
And another year with all those guys. I mean, there was a lot of change and they still succeeded to an extent this year. So
exactly.
This is a team that was nearly a 3 seed.
Yeah, and they what? Did they win the third place game for League's Cup or lose it? I don't remember, but still, they made this the third place game.
Yeah, well, who knows?
Whatever.
Too many soccer games.
It's an accomplishment. But yeah, I think look, they need to bring in a center back, they need to bring in a winger, and I think this Rapids team is even better in 2025. But let's move forward to the other series that has been decided. I don't know what to call it. I guess it's a series, but
there's two others. You keep saying one other. There's two others.
I meant in the West.
There's two others in the West.
No.
There's three.
Oh my God! Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say at the beginning.
Bro.
I've been trying to tell you this. I was like, what are you talking about? There's definitely three decided.
This is my flu game. This is whatever you want to call it. But let's talk about the other series that is decided that will be facing the LA Galaxy. Is that better?
There you go.
Thank you. Number 3, Real Salt Lake versus number 6, Minnesota United. Both games finished in draws. Game 1 a 0-0 draw. Minnesota United won on PKs 5-4. Game 2, 1-1 draw. Minnesota United won on PKs 3-1. I mean, ultimately, the star of this series is Dane St. Clair. What he did in the second PK shootout, what both him and Zach McMath did across both games.
It's a goalie matchup right here.
Hey, that's it, right? MLS wants more games. You get a bunch of draws and goalkeepers making 20 saves a game, you know? But at the end of the day, I think Minnesota United took advantage of a team that, I mean, look, I picked RSL to move forward through this series, but Minnesota United took advantage of a team that was down bad. Chicho Arango continued to not show up where I thought maybe he would in the uptick of the MLS Cup playoffs. Eric Ramsey has shifted this team into a new formation that I think completely, at least defensively, threw RSL off. And you know, they're moving on to go face the Galaxy and what I think is going to be a fun series. I don't want to like shortchange this series because it was maybe the most fun on and off the field, but at a high level for right now, that's what I have. What did you think about this series?
Yeah, I mean, I picked Minnesota. Like the Chicho Arango, and we texted about it. I don't know if we ever came to a conclusion. I went to go look, but like, he hasn't. They said on the broadcast he hasn't scored at home since July, and I don't know if you ended up checking to see if he scored at all since July.
I got you.
The way, and I think we talked about this, you know, together. Like the way this season went for RSL, I personally like. If you're excited as a Colorado Rapids fan going into next season, I'm kind of feeling the opposite as an RSL fan. Like the way they got off to that flying start, the way that their team was playing was great. I mean, this was a team that was fighting for that 1 seed. And it kind of just like fell off a little bit, or a lot of bit. And it got to the point where like this defensive matchup, first half of the season RSL, this isn't a defensive matchup. I don't think they're scoring 1 goal in regulation across these 2 games. I think they're probably scoring more. And I think it's really disappointing. And a lot of props to Minnesota. I think Eric Ramsey's got this team playing really well together. Obviously, like you said, you know, it's hard to get like these huge things to take away from this, considering there was 2 goals from open play in the entire series, 2 draws, like kind of a I don't want to say boring because it's still interesting. It's still the playoffs, still a decent competition, but not as exciting as it could have been. And I don't know. I don't want to like hit on RSL too much. They should still be pretty happy with the season. I just feel like the vibes there, in my opinion, is just not as exciting as I think the season started out. And I had bigger expectations for them. And that they kind of didn't live up to that. Like getting out in the first round feels like in that sense, that's sort of a failure for what I think they were trying for.
I think feels like a bad season. And I checked. Chicho Arango stopped scoring for RSL on July 6th. That was the last time he scored a goal for
And
RSL.
he finished in like what, top 5 for goals plus assists this year?
I mean, it just shows you the pace he was on. You know, it was ridiculous.
Well, he was outpacing Messi until Messi got hurt.
Yeah.
And he stopped. I mean, he, for all intents and purposes or whatever, also got hurt.
I got you. Look, Arango was a failure in 2024. I understand the sale of Carlos Andres Gomez to whatever French club it was. It's $11 million. I get it. You know, I think some of the signings they've made for 2025 could be great. And I don't want to put the Minnesota advancing on RSL being bad and being down, but it's part of it. Pablo Mastroeni, this RSL front office, need to figure out if Chicho Arango is a viable DP level striker option for the future. If he is, and you can get what you got from half a season from Arango in 2025 and moving forward, great. You know, you're gonna win games. But if he's not, Anderson Julio is not the option at striker. He's a great dude off the bench, and I love his game. But RSL need to figure out how to take advantage of the win now mode that I still think they're in, especially if Arango's good. But they need to take advantage of it for 2025. So that's my piece on RSL there. I don't know if you
would just add, like, on the Chicho Arango front is, like, I don't want to pretend like he had a, like, I don't know if I would agree that his season was like a failure. I think if you had shown me his stats across this season,
it looks great.
And if you had told me like he's just like that was not from half the season basically, and that was over the full season, and he was producing the whole season but had the same stats, I almost feel like we would be talking about it better. Whereas like the fact of how it happened, where he was off to that like insane pace and then it just kind of fell off a cliff, makes it feel so much worse than just seeing a steady pace that was maybe half of what he was doing at the beginning.
Because it is worse. I mean,
well, because it's like then you need him the most and he's a ghost, right? Like, but I don't know. I don't feel like if I'm RSL going into next year, I'm probably assuming he's going to perform again, right? Like he just stat-wise had a great season, and I think if he can just sustain even half of his production over a full season, and maybe it's part of that Gomez sale that honestly you could probably have gotten more money for him if they continued to be very good and maybe gone further in the playoffs. I don't know, but that obviously impacted Arango's season. The suspension and the time away kind of hurt his season a lot. Like, there's some things like he clearly needs a good, I don't know, relationship, I guess, with his other teammates. So hopefully they can build that into next season and not have as much disruption, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's going to be an interesting offseason for RSL. I know RSL fans are calling for Mastroeni's head, which I don't know if I agree with. Diego Luna might not be on the
lot of teams who would want that.
100%.
So I wouldn't make that decision personally.
Diego Luna, right? Like a few of these other guys that it's like, are they going to be around for 2025? What does that look like? What does the roster look like? What does the organization look like? But again, I want to give some love to Minnesota because they deserve it, because the up and down season, bringing in Eric Ramsey a few weeks into the MLS season, a new sporting director that didn't arrive in the US until January, a massive overhaul of players and roster across 2 windows in 2024 has gotten them to the point where now they are on to the conference semifinals, where they're gonna face the LA Galaxy, and they are in a point where 2025, 2026, 2027 could look really good if more of these
keep Ramsey long enough.
Well, that, But I'm saying, like, even if Khalid El Hamad, if he sticks around, the sporting director, right? Like, you have to think he has a vision underneath him, and some of these guys are key components in that. And Kelvin Yeboah, a game-winning, a high-level attacker in MLS and everything like that. So I think Minnesota is gonna make this Galaxy interesting series interesting, but we'll talk about that, I think, in probably another week or so.
Yeah, I mean, and for Minnesota, like they didn't have a coach until what, a week before the season or a week into the season, and
A
then
week or two into,
I
yeah.
think we both picked them to finish like 12 and 13th. So this season's awesome for them. I feel like that's what good hires and good signings can really do to a club in MLS, and I feel like it's important to keep that in mind.
Yeah. Look, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Let's go into the final series that's wrapped up, Jason.
Oh,
In
there's
the
one
Western,
more. Oh,
number 4 Seattle Sounders versus number 5 Houston Dynamo. Again, a series where we saw 2 draws and PKs decide the winner here. Game 1, 0-0 draw. Sounders win on PKs 5-4 out in Seattle. Game 2 in Houston, 1-1 draw. Sounders win in PKs 7-6. Unfortunately, I think you could take away the strong defensive performances from this matchup. I think the players like Christian Roldan, who stepped up in game 2 and everything like that, right? But what everyone's going to remember is Coco Carrasquia's red card in game 1, Hector Herrera spitting at a ref and getting a red card in game 2, and the Houston Dynamo imploding at this point of the season, you know?
Yeah, I mean, 100% it's an implosion by the Dynamo. I think both red cards are pretty bad. Obviously, the Hector Herrera one is horrible. Like, come on, man. Like, and I think, 2 weeks ago when I talked about this one as one of my, most exciting series. It should be really good, really awesome, competitive series. It wasn't that. Houston really just decided, nah, like, see ya. We don't want to play anymore, which is unfortunate. I actually, I don't know. I'm less confident about the Sounders after the series too, because I was trying to look up when that first red card, like Coco Carrasquilla one happened, but that was around half, I think. But they basically played a full game with an extra person over these 2 games, and I don't feel like either of them should have really ended in PKs. So that's a little concerning, but I don't know. Maybe they just need to get their feet under them in the playoffs, and then they get who they get in the next round. But yeah, I left both of these games pretty disappointed and kind of like I feel cheated out of a really good series. Like, I feel disappointed that we could have had some amazing series here, and it ended up with 2 games that ended in draws and went to PKs and had multiple red cards, and was just kind of not that fun, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, look, with Houston, I'm going to leave it as the red card sucked. It was to key players. It wasn't even like it was to, like, no, I'm not going to name a Houston player.
Literally two of the most necessary players to have. Like,
exactly, right? And I think those are conversations that the Houston front office is going to have with Carrasquilla and Hector Herrera. That's if Hector Herrera is coming back, because he's out of contract after this year.
I mean, he's getting a suspension for this too.
100%.
No shot that it's not going to be 5-ish. Maybe more.
I agree with that 100%. But the Seattle side of things, and I agree with you. I'm concerned about the Sounders. I think defensively they're great. I mean, look, Jackson Reagan is an MLS Defensive Player of the Year finalist, and he's well deserving, and he showed that in both these games. Nuhu and Alex Roldan, I think, are maybe one of the better outside back pairings, and defensively they're both strong. Stephen Fry continues to be Stephen Fry year after year after year. I like what this team does from a defensive standpoint. I don't think, especially if Jordan Morris has a knock, which he does, and there's some injuries kind of floating around this team, I don't know if Seattle has an offensive game winner on this roster that can compete with anyone on LAFC or the form of Ryan Gauld right now, because we'll talk about that series in a little bit. But I don't know if they have anyone. I don't think it's Pedro de la Vega. I don't think you can consistently rely on Christian Roldan to be an offensive game changer. I think you can rely on him in other ways, but I have my concerns about the Sounders moving forward, and I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I think injuries with the Sounders are the only thing that's going to hurt them in the attack, right? Like Morris, Rusnak. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe Raul Ruidiaz just hits his playoff form.
No,
I don't see it happening. I don't know. I mean, I think they'll be competitive with whoever they play in the next round. Like, I don't want to write them off. I still am gonna probably, this is a preseason pick that I had, so I'm pulling for them. But yeah, it is a little concerning that they weren't able to score a single goal. Well, I guess they did score a goal, but I mean, like,
I
take
get what you mean.
advantage of having an extra man for pretty much half in both games. It's disappointing. I think I was expecting more from Seattle. I was definitely expecting more from Houston. So again, like, I'm just disappointed with that whole series. I hope the Sounders can figure it out. They have quite a while to figure it out, so get healthy.
I know, right? And that's
like, they might be healthy. Like, if Morris is back, and Rusnick's back, like, I don't know. They're not an easy team to beat, and they have more experience in the playoffs than a lot of teams.
I agree with that. There's a world where it happens. There's a world where Rusnak and Morris get healthy over the next 2 weeks, and they've played LAFC 20 times this season, and they've played the Vancouver Whitecaps 1,000,000 times over the last few years, and it works and it clicks because you have the experience. You have Rusnak, Morris, you're good, right? I just don't know. I don't know if I have confidence in
I think
Jordan
we'll
Morris.
preview it when we get there. Maybe we'll have some more information about some of the health of these players. But yeah, the only thing I can leave with the series is with disappointment. I feel like overall it's just what the heck, we deserved something more here.
I agree. At least like Minnesota RSL was like an entertaining 2 draws. Like, this was
like a muddy.
Yeah. It wasn't bad. It was good defensive game, but that doesn't also attract
But I just expected, the 2 red cards, I think, just kind of bother me because that just feels like it. And I guess it still went to PKs in both of the games, which is
still
I don't know. After those red cards, it kind of deflated the whole.
I agree. I'll give Houston some credit that they continue to fight being down a man in both games.
They didn't they get those red cards to such key players, and it kind of just deflated the whole thing. Like, they weren't playing in the typical way they would probably want to be playing. And Seattle didn't take advantage of it nearly enough. But
I agree. I
just feel like a broken record.
It's MLS Cup playoffs time. People have to step up. And if we're going to talk about someone who has stepped up in these MLS Cup playoffs, it's Ryan Gauld. It's the Vancouver Whitecaps. This series is going to a game 3. LAFC versus Vancouver. Game 1 in LA. LAFC took a 2-1 win. Game 2 and Vancouver shut them out 3-0. Amazing performance from Vanni Sartini's dudes. Game 3 is this upcoming weekend, Jason. It's back out in LA. Do you think the Caps can keep the trend of upsets going and take down LAFC? And something we've said on this podcast for a while, that the Whitecaps can't do it against LAFC.
We have seen the Whitecaps fail against LAFC. It's not even just what we said. We've seen it for years almost, it feels like, every time this matchup happens. And I don't know, maybe it's different. I do like the idea with what Sartini has going here. And I think with LAFC, we've talked about it a lot in last year's playoffs as they kind of steamrolled their way. They play their way, with Chirundolo wants, and it's not with the ball necessarily all the time, right? They're content, go play your possession and we will take it and beat you with Bouanga on the wing, with, anyone just on that team that's, I don't know, Bogusz, Oliveira. The team is so talented, right? We know how lethal they are. We know how they counter. We know how they win the ball and immediately hit you hard. I think I've seen Denny Bouanga like wide open running down a wing as someone plays him a through pass 1,000 times at this point. And I think I'm not going to say it's solved, but I feel like Vancouver has started to kind of just say, we're not going to let you do that. We're going to have 3 extra guys behind. Just play your through ball, and we have someone there to meet Bouanga, right? I don't know. Yeah. At the same time, it's still LAFC, and they still can have some crazy moment of just, okay, yeah, this is the team we thought they were, right? But it's definitely giving me a little bit more pause, especially with the form that Vancouver seems to be in. Like you said, Ryan Gauld. They still have Brian White, who's amazing, right? Who could hit you when you least expect it. They have a team that is, I think, a lot more experienced than Vancouver teams who have probably played LAFC in the past.
Yeah.
A lot less scared, probably, of this LAFC team. And especially after that 3-0 win, a lot more confident than I think most Vancouver teams have been against the LAFC. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, like, how are you not confident with the form Ryan Gauld is in? Yeah. He has 6 goals in his last 4 games. He's out of his mind, and a hot player wins you games, especially in knockout cup competition. And this is where the knockout single elimination starts for both of these teams. I do think the shift in formation from Vanni Sartini has also really slowed down the transition game for LAFC, which is what they're trying to hammer home every single game and beat teams on. The one thing that I feel like could eventually just unlock all of it is if Olivier Giroud finds any kind of form, because he has been bad, and it's not even.
We sure it's like fair?
I mean, that's also fair. He was doing it not too long ago.
He was very good. I think a older European player to MLS mid-season is probably not my favorite move, because it seems like it takes a decent amount of time to get adjusted. I'll leave it at that.
That's fair. Well, Jason, we both picked the Sounders series correct. We both picked the Galaxy series correct. You picked Minnesota. You got that one over me with RSL. We both picked LAFC. This is not about our predictions.
Yeah, we can't change the predictions. But
what are your thoughts right now? Who goes on?
Man, I think if I had to choose right now, I pick LAFC still, only because I think in these one-off games and they're home, like the talent is still like unbeatable, right? Like, and even if Giroud isn't bad, like they still have Kai Kamara, who, despite him being pretty old now, is an MLS goal-scoring machine. They still have players that they can bring in to shift it. It's probably the least confident I'll be picking an LAFC team. But yeah, I think I would still probably go LAFC just on I don't know, talent.
That's fair. You and listeners might start seeing a trend from me this episode, especially when we dive into the East, but I'm all on Vancouver. Let's go. Ryan Gauld. That's it.
I mean, I'd be pretty excited. I think chaos is pretty fun. So I'm not going to be upset about that at all.
Yeah.
But I just find it unlikely, I guess.
That's fair. Hey, look, that's fine. When Ryan Gauld puts up a hat trick in LA, then
does Vancouver benefit from being in the play-in game and getting that form on a beatdown over Portland?
Exactly. That's it. It's all about form, baby. Let's go to the East. Let's talk about the one series that is complete in the Eastern Conference.
The one we all predicted.
Yeah. Number 2, Columbus Crew versus number 7, New York Red Bulls. Game 1 in Columbus. The Red Bulls come away with a 1-0 shutout win. Game 2 in New Jersey at Red Bulls, 2-2 draw, and the Red Bulls come away with a 5-4 PK shutout win. There's a lot to unpack here, Jason. I think I'm going to give a little Red Bulls a lot of love right now, okay? It's coming from an NYCFC fan, but I have to give credit where credit's due. I think Sandro Schwartz out-coached Wilfried Nancy across decision day when they played them to game 2 in Harrison, New Jersey, and I'll explain that really quick. Decision day showed the same Red Bulls that they've been putting out all season long, a team that struggled going down the line, right? 2 games, Sandro Schwartz was very open, and he spoke about this in the media, that he needed to change. He needed to show the Columbus Crew team a different version of them, and he shifted to a 3-man back, 5-man back, whatever you want to consider it, and it worked. It slowed down so much of the Crew attack. The 5-man back kind of pressing and swarming to the ball slowed down so much of Cucho and the one game we got of Rossi and Christian Ramirez and everyone else in between. On top of that, Emil Forsberg being injected into the middle of this Red Bulls team, and I literally mean in the middle, not on the wing. He's playing a central attacking midfielder, changes so much. And the Red Bulls, I have to give them all the love, all the credit. They did the damn thing and beat who I still consider the best MLS team ever in the Columbus Crew. That's fine. We can talk about that in the offseason.
I will say, just in terms of the Red Bulls, like you're saying, Forsberg opens up so much for them in the middle because of his threat to shoot, to pass, to make something happen, to dribble around someone. Like, there's such a threat. I think you really summed up the Red Bulls well. I don't really have a whole lot to add. No, I think you did a good job. I think the Red Bulls, like, props to them. They won this chess match, and they did it really, really well. For the fact that they played the Columbus Crew essentially 3 times in I don't know, 2-ish weeks, 3 weeks, that's maybe the toughest feat so far that I've seen in a while. I think for Columbus, I don't know. I felt like they lacked a lot of urgency, or ever felt like, maybe it's because they're confident, maybe it's because they've won before, maybe they feel like they're never truly out of it because of the talent, because of how good they are, because of how many times they've come back and won and made some stuff happen. But it didn't, I don't know, like at home down 1-0 to the Red Bulls, it didn't strike me as a team that was, we need this goal, we need to score, we need to keep this going, we need to win. Then going into game 2, I was still pretty confident that the Crew were going to pull it out. But again, like even 0-0 in the 80th minute, like you don't want that going to PKs. And sure, you might be confident. You have Patrick Schulte, who's been good, who actually was pretty good in that PK shootout. I mean, that was a crazy shootout. They honestly, had like 3 chances to win, failed on all of them. But I don't know. To me, I felt like the Columbus Crew really lacked that. Like, it's hard to criticize them because they have won before. And I almost feel like it's because of that I feel this way, because I feel like I expected them to just say, oh, the Rebels punched us in the face, let's punch back and score 3 goals. And I felt like that was supposed to happen, and they just didn't have it. And they didn't have it in the series at all. And they didn't, even when it was down to the wire where I expected them to be like, we need this goal, it never felt like they were really nervous when maybe they should have been.
I have a lot of thoughts there.
I don't know if you agree or yeah. I mean, I just feel like I didn't feel like they were scared, and they should have been. That's what makes me the most upset.
No, I don't disagree with anything you said, and I don't want to like pry too much into that because I feel like you hit the nail on the head there. At the end of the day, Wilfried Nancy and the Columbus Crew system got beat and they like to control the ball. And the Red Bulls figured out a way, I think, through the shift in formation, through the Red Bull style, as well as through, I think, just sheer, you have to give the players credit for how they played, because a lot of them played out of their mind, like Dylan Nialis playing a right center back and I being very impactful, and John Tolkien and everyone else, right?
Carlos Coronel
For a bad year has played great in those games. I think ultimately it's just, there's eventually a point where every single tactic has its flaw. And I think Sandro Schwarz figured that out and kind of surprised the Red Bulls with a little bit of some shifts. The players stepped up to it, and the Columbus Crew are out. And that's what it comes down to. And I hate it because I want to see more Crew play, but we've also seen a lot.
I think that's what bothers me even more. It's like I have these expectations. I have these expectations of Wilfred Nancy to instill this in his teams, but I don't know. I just when I look at that and I watch these games, and I'm just kind of like disappointed in how it played out, because I feel like there is an extra gear the Columbus Crew could have gone to, and kind of were almost complacent in the fact that they weren't, what they wanted to do wasn't working. And I get it. Like a lot of times they keep hammering their own system and it does work eventually, and it didn't this time. And I think they needed to maybe make some changes when they probably, they didn't. So, I guess we'll move on to the next game. Then the what series? We'll do Cincy versus New York City next. That one is, I don't know. Tom, where the hell did you go? We're just gonna pause and edit this out. I'm trying. I can't hear you. I wasn't prepared for this.
You can hear me.
Yes.
Great. I'm here, everyone. Sorry about that.
I tried. I said maybe we edit this out, but I was not prepared.
I'm going to edit that out. That was a little bit too long for it to be funny. But I am here, everyone. Sorry about that. Audio might change quality-wise because I had to move because I love life today. Let's move forward, though. Let's go to the series where the Red Bulls are going to play the winner of number 3 FC Cincinnati. I actually nailed that part. Number 3 FC Cincinnati versus number 6 New York City FC. Game 1 was a 1-0 win for Cincinnati out in TQL Stadium. Game 2, 3-1 win for New York City FC in Queens at Citi Field, where I got to watch the Mets lose to the Dodgers. Yay. But this is just, I have zero fucking idea for this series in game 3.
I kind of am leaning New York City still. And I picked them before the series, and I'm still kind of leaning with it. I'm like, the first game, I don't feel like New York City was even prepared. Like, I don't know. That was not a great game from them.
They're bad away. New York City.
But they stuck in it, man. Like, if Cincy had smashed them 4-0 in a game where New York City was just not good, then I would maybe feel differently. But I don't feel confident about Cincy either, right? They're not creating. They're still – we've been talking about Cincy for weeks now, and just like what is going on over there, they haven't looked good. They're not also that good at home. So I don't know. I think where we're at in this series is
PK's game 3.
Yeah, we're just at a stalemate here. It's like who's gonna pull this one off? I don't know. I personally think the pressure's on for Cincinnati because this is a big time game. They are at home, and the longer that goes without them, dominating or taking lead, the more stressful that's gonna become. And I don't know if I don't know. I'm gonna set a record for not knowing here, but I don't feel confident in Cincinnati.
Right? New York City at home scores goals in bunches. They showed that in game 2, and they put up such a different just type of threat in game 2. And I think a lot of that came from
Technically, they weren't even at home.
Well, they don't have a home. Okay, we're nomads in this thing.
Okay, well then go do that on the road. You're already on the road.
That's also my argument for this team, but whatever. But look, Alenic at right back, I think brought so much more than Tavon Gray did at right back in game 1, and obviously Gray got the red card, so he couldn't play in game 2. And it's not to say I hate Tavon Gray. Tavon Gray, I think, earned that starting right back role and was justfully in that starting 11 for game 1. But Alenic brings a little bit more of an offensive threat that you saw connect so well with Alonso Martinez on that first goal in game 2. The concern for me was like the XG for like NYCFC was like less than 0.5 in game 1. Like they created absolutely nothing. Where Cincinnati have had 2, I'm not going to say lucky because I think skill has to go into everything, but 2 maybe not so common, not so repeatable goals in the Luca Orejano strike, which, I mean, maybe I'm even wrong in saying not repeatable. He's been having these fantastic wonder goals all season long. And then Lucho Acosta bouncing a ball off Yamil Assad's face to find the back of the net in game 1. You know, like these aren't the most run of play type goals that I think Cincinnati probably want to produce, especially.
They're not like the pretty, nice build up.
Exactly.
Very good, solid goal team.
Exactly. Where you saw New York City have the nice build up, solid goals in game 2. If New York City can find a little bit of that offensive form and I think score early, I think they take game 3. But I think this goes to PKs ultimately, to be perfectly honest.
You think it's like a 0-0 PKs? Because the only way I see it going to PKs if it is 0-0. I don't. If one team scores, I think
that's the game.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's the game necessarily. I just don't think it's going to be like a 1-1, 2-2, 3. I don't think it's going to be that.
That's fair. I don't know. I could see a 0-0 and then
I almost like to put a positive spin for New York City. It's like maybe they were just feeling it out in that first game. You are away. It's kind of like, you lose that game. It's expected. You go home, you win. But I don't know. That's maybe like too positive of a spin from someone who's honestly picked them. But I feel pretty confident, like you said. Some of those goals in that second game are nice goals. They built up, they played their way. They did what they wanted to do when they needed to, and they accomplished it, coming away with a win. I think it's going to be like a 2-0 or 2-1 New York win.
Wow. I do not have that much confidence. I'll say this as a New York City fan again. If Alenic isn't starting at right back, I riot. And I'd like to see Justin Hack play center back next to Thiago Martins. But I still have my concerns about Justin Hack playing left center back next to Martins. But at the end of the day, he looked fantastic in game 2. And if you can get a little bit of that replication of him on the ball at center back in game 3, then I think New York City have a very strong, fair shot to win. And he'll have a little bit of a Hudson River Derby in the conference semifinals, which would be a ton of fun. Don't know who would host that, where that would be. We'll come down to that one.
Yeah, they are not prepared for that.
No, not at all. Let's go to the other 2 series that are up for grabs. And we already talked about one of the biggest upsets in MLS Cup playoffs history with the Red Bulls Crew series. This would top it for sure. Number 1, Inter Miami versus number 9, Atlanta United. Game 1 was a 2-1 win for Inter Miami down in Miami. Game 2 was a 2-1 win for Atlanta in Atlanta. I mean, that game 2 was excellent. I think that's everything that you absolutely want to see from Atlanta United if you're playing Miami. Now, is that a Miami team that didn't have Sergio Busquets? And is there also reports today, November 6th, that Busquets is still not training? Yes, and that would have me very concerned if I'm an Inter Miami fan, because yes, he's not Messi. Yes, he's not Suarez. He's not Alba. He's not contributing offensively as much as those guys. but he is the guy that sets the tempo, that creates, that understands when to make
Calms the mid,
exactly.
defensive mid, I guess.
He does he's played center back this year, like he's done it all for them, and I think he controls a lot more than maybe the casual fan may notice or may give credit to. Messi is still Messi, but at the end of the day, I think the Busquets missing from the lineup from the 18 is a big blow.
Well, to that point, I
Yeah.
feel like if you think of Messi as like someone who controls the attack, controls like that attacking whole half of the field, it's sort of like Busquets does that for the defensive half of the field.
Yeah.
And kind of controls that and gets all those players in the right positions, figuring it out. He's sort of like the captain, or so to speak, of that side of the field. So yeah, it is a bigger loss than like, oh, they just have Messi.
Exactly, right? Which, look, just having Messi
it might not matter anyways, right?
Puts you into the driver's seat. And Game 3 is down in Miami, where Miami's already beat this Atlanta United squad. But this is where we have to give credit to Atlanta United. Over the course of 2 games, Brad Guzan has played out of his mind, not like he's a 40-year-old goalkeeper at all. Their new left back that came in during the summer, Pedro Amador, he has 2 assists in the series already. He has assists in 4 straight games, and he has 7 assists in his last 9 games for Atlanta United. When they can play and get Amador pushed up the left-hand side of the field, he puts in, dare I say it, almost a Julian Gressel-esque type of pass into the box that will just find the head of somebody, find the foot of somebody. He puts in a beautiful attacking cross, attacking ball, and any version of that. I really like Amador, and to me, he's been one of the biggest game changers outside of Saba Lobanajanice for Atlanta United in this series. I don't know. Saba's playing well. He performs well against Miami. I think Amador's been great. Guzan, like I said, has been, I think, the absolute player of the game for probably both matches. But Jason, does Atlanta have a real shot here?
I mean, I just want to say Garth Lagerwey is an absolute killer at the shit, man. Like, oh my goodness. All these signings are just always good. I don't get it. It's not fair.
Right.
I think I'm still probably leaning Miami. Actually, not really leaning. I am picking Miami.
There's no.
I think props to what Atlanta's been able to do. You talked about it. The way they've kind of rebuilt this team on the fly has been incredible. I think even before the season ended, I was like, this is a team that's going to be scary in next year and stuff. I didn't realize they'd be scary now, like immediately. So they have done. This is a team that isn't a 9 seed or whatever, like an 8 or 9. They're way better than that, I think. If they were probably playing pretty much anyone else, I would be confident in their chances to move on. But with Miami, it's I don't know. It's Messi.
I mean,
I'm not betting against Messi.
It's a fair argument for sure. For me personally, and like I said before, you might notice a trend. I'm on Atlanta United upset in Miami. I'm on Dax McCarty getting an MLS Cup this last season. That's once New York City get eliminated, because I know they're gonna break my hearts in Game 3 against Cincy. I know they're gonna break everything that I got going on right here. I just want Dax McCarty to win an MLS Cup.
I mean, in the East, if Miami's gone, who's the scariest team in the East? Honestly,
Orlando?
I was gonna say Orlando, but I'm not super confident with that pick. I don't think maybe the Red Bulls.
I think if it's gonna come, let's just say Atlanta win in this hypothetical world. You have a winner of a Cincy New York City series. I'm not overly confident in both teams. You have a hot Atlanta United team then, and confident Atlanta United team then. You have a hot Red Bulls team, a confident Red Bulls team, and then you either have Orlando, which have been really good in recent weeks, or you have Charlotte, one of the best defensive teams in the league. The East could be fucking wild, and I'm here for it. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's dive into that final series and wrap up this episode. Orlando City versus Charlotte FC. Game 1 was a 2-0 win for Orlando City down in Orlando. Game 2, 0-0 draw in which Charlotte came out victors 3-1 in PKs to force this Game 3. This was a tale of two halves from Orlando for me, in total honesty. Game 1 was Orlando dominant. They controlled the offensive side. Defensively, they handled their everything well, and Charlotte didn't really threaten defensively. I mean, offensively. Game 2, Charlotte still didn't really threaten offensively because that's just, I think, where they're at this point of the year. But defense led the way and forces this Game 3. Where is your mind even remotely at with this?
I mean, yeah, if you had talked to me after game 1, I would have been like pretty confident with my pick of Orlando here. But and I think still my pick is Orlando. I think I'm sticking with it. I think going back home, especially with how they played in that first game at home, that was a confident Orlando side. That was a comfortable side.
Yeah.
I think going to Charlotte and seeing those fans and the crowd, and that's not an easy place to win. That's not an easy place to go in a play a team that is as good defensively. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I think when you have a really good defense, it's almost more impactful at home than away when it's like that solid of a defense, right? When you're playing with your fans against you, when you're attacking a team that is that good with all those fans behind them, it's almost like you have an extra player out there.
Yeah.
So I do think like playing at home in this series, of any of them, is probably the biggest decider, in my opinion, on how the teams are playing, I guess, and who's coming out. And like you said, Charlotte hasn't threatened a whole lot in attack, and I think they're going to need to get something going because Orlando's going to find their ways to score, and obviously they didn't in that second game, but it is a very talented attack. You have Facundo Torres, Duncan McGuire has started to kind of pick it up. Ivan Angulo, I don't know. I think you have Ladero, who has a lot of experience, who can kind of, if he needs to, tell people what to do. But I think there's just a lot to overcome. If Charlotte isn't going to be creating, you're not actually putting a lot of pressure on Orlando. And when they go home, they're not going to be that scared if you're not able to put any pressure on them.
Well, clearly the dog likes what you're saying, Jason. I'll agree with that.
Orlando City fan.
Yeah, we got a big Orlando City fan in the house. I'll wrap it up with this. I agree with what you said. I think if Charlotte is going to win, they need to find some offensive uptick. You know what I'm saying? Like they need a spark, and maybe that spark is the return of Pep Biel to the lineup. I think that could 100% be that. He wasn't great in game 1.
He was frustrated a lot.
We could talk about another super shitty red card, but if he maybe finds the right mindset and finds the right form, game 3 could be the spark that he needs and what Charlotte needs to win the game ultimately. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, I mean, he could come back and have that. If he's going to have a good mindset, he needs to have the mindset of I fucked up.
Now let me make up for it.
It's lucky that I'm here.
Yeah.
Now I got to go make up for those mistakes and actually make an impact. And maybe that's going to happen. I don't know.
And I think that's what Charlotte fans should probably hope for, because they need to find a goal. They need to find a goal in Orlando to have any hope of winning this game, moving on, and facing.
Talk about a first round of just elite goalkeeping.
I mean, bro, you want to? I'm sure MLS and Apple TV didn't really want to see that, but here we are, and it has been great defensive performances across all of the round one games and series for sure. Jason, anything, or do you have? I guess Jason, we can do a pick a game of the weekend here, because we do have 3 games coming up this weekend, or 4 games coming up this weekend. Sorry.
I mean, they're all decider playoff matches, so I can't really be oh, this one's gonna be so much better.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Which one top? They're all great. You should watch all of them. Which one tops the charts for you?
Maybe Atlanta, Miami. just because of the stakes on the line, right? Like the impact that might be. The way that one result could impact the entire playoffs, I think, is really interesting. So it's probably Atlanta, Miami.
I'm okay with that. I think the most fun one could be LAFC Vancouver, but
I guess fun and impactful, maybe different things, but yeah, I think both of those are both impactful. And
yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Least fun, Cincy, New York City. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sorry.
it's fair. That's 100% fair. I don't disagree there either. Jason, listeners, viewers, sorry about the technical difficulties on my end. I'm gonna put my hand up. I had my own red card. We saw Coco, we saw Hector Herrera, Pep Biel. I got my own red card in this one. But
it wasn't as bad though as theirs. All three of those actually.
wasn't as angry. But listeners, thank you guys. Watchers, thank you guys. Make sure to subscribe, all that fun stuff if you can, when you can, and all of that. Enjoy the games this weekend. Jason and I will be back next week to recap the 4 final games from round 1, and we'll take the news and everything that comes in as well, because we'll have a little bit of a break going into an international window, and then obviously the MLS Cup playoffs kicking back up at the end of November. So thank you guys, and talk with you next week.